Hello, and welcome everybody to the June 2025 edition of Let's Talk. And a Let's Talk that is going out a little bit later than I intended it to. I was supposed to have this out actually on Wednesday, but the recording that I had put together, once I got around to editing it, I wasn't actually all that satisfied with it, and there were some things that I actually missed. So I decided to wait a little bit, re-record it, and now you're getting it out on the 8th. So a little bit later than normal, but whatever, it's not a huge deal. I'm still going to try to keep this as short and sweet as I possibly can. But I do have a little bit more to go over this month than I have in the last few months' update videos, so this is just going to naturally be a little bit longer. And there's actually one big thing that I want to talk about at the end. It pertains to Destiny, just warning you, so if you're not interested in that, obviously, once that starts, you can click off. But this is probably going to be the last time I ever touch upon that subject matter, and you will understand why once I actually get around to talking about it. So just bear with me. This, in fact, is related to some stuff that I talked about in last month's update, and that's not the only thing related to last month's update I want to talk about, but it is pertinent, if that makes sense, and I want to sort of make a little bit of an official declaration with this Let's Play as we are starting to head into the... I don't want to say the last portion of the Let's Play, because there's still probably 100 episodes left, but it's definitely winding down at this point, and I want to make a decision as, well, for anybody who knows about Destiny, they are about to head into a new saga with the game, and I want to talk about my position on that entire thing. But again, I'll save that for the end. For now, let's just go over the usual stuff. We're going to start by talking about the stuff that changed over last month. Obviously, we have two new Let's Plays, Pokemon Black and White 2 and Abzu, with Pokemon Platinum coming to a soft conclusion. It's not completely over yet. In fact, once Black and White 2 is done, we will be getting right back to Platinum, although that's not going to be for a while, just warning you. And then Super Mario Galaxy, I am totally 100% okay with that one being done. Nothing left to showcase in that game. All that's left now is to look ahead to the sequel, which will be not super soon, but relatively soon, and I'll explain how that's going to work a little bit later. But first, let's start with Pokemon, because I just want to say that going into this Let's Play, I knew that Pokemon Black and White 2 was a big game, but out of all of the games in the first 5 generations, it's the one that I think I understood the least in terms of its grand scope, because I've played through Black and White 2 a couple of times, but I've not really done a ton with the endgame outside of like the Pokemon World Tournament, which is funny because that's probably the one thing in this Let's Play I actually covered the least, mainly due to the nature of it, the fact that you kind of need to throw away your main story team and build an entire competitive team just to actually tackle it, and that just wasn't really going to work with the flow and the pace of the Let's Play too well. I still cover it, don't get me wrong, it's going to happen. It's just not going to be an extremely extensive coverage, much in the same way that I sort of just summarized the Battle Frontier in my Pokemon Emerald Let's Play. But I can say this because I've just wrapped recording on the final episode of Black and White 2 about as of a week and a half ago, and I had no idea truly how big this game is. In fact, I think it's safe to say that outside of the Legends games and the 2 Switch games that also have DLC attached, if we include that, Pokemon Black and White 2 is the biggest game in the entire series. And I mean that seriously. There is so much going on with this game that I truly wasn't fully prepared for this. In fact, I can say right now that out of the... Because what it is, Black and White 2 is the 7th Pokemon Let's Play I've done on the channel. My first was Fire Red Leaf Green, then Heart Gold Soul Silver, then it was Emerald, then it was Legends Arceus, then it was Black and White 1, then Platinum, and now Black and White 2. And out of all of those, the only one that has more hours of recorded raw footage than Black and White 2 was Legends Arceus. And that game was just so big, but also I had made it my mission in that game to finish the Pokedex, which was just naturally going to make that Let's Play so much longer anyway. But yeah, of course, it's also a modern game, so it's a little bit bigger than what Pokemon normally is, and also an entirely different type of series. So I don't even know if I should count that one, but if I'm being as pedantic as possible, Legends Arceus is the biggest Pokemon Let's Play I've ever done. There is no doubt in my mind that Black and White 2 is going to be the second biggest. It's certainly going to eclipse Emerald and Legends Arceus in terms of episode count, but I think I was a little bit better about keeping episode lengths a bit more consistent this time around. Up until the very end, right towards the end of this Let's Play, some of the episodes do get pretty long, just so that some semblance of progression can get made in some of those final episodes. It'll make sense when we actually get to that point. But like I said, it won't be for a while. I will be very shocked if Black and White 2 is done within 2025. It's probably going to go well into 2026. If I were to make an educated guess, I would say probably around February or March of next year is when Black and White 2 is going to be done, just by the nature of 2 episodes a week, which I've been over this many times. I can't change that. It's just how my upload schedule works if I want to keep the same consistency and variety across all of my uploads. But you guys get more Pokemon episodes than any other series except for Destiny, so I don't know what else to tell you. It's a big game. We're going to be enjoying Pokemon Black and White 2 for a long time, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. I don't say any of this is a negative, because I had a great time with it. It was probably one of the most fun I've had recording a Pokemon Let's Play since my Emerald Let's Play, actually. I just had such a blast with it, even more than I did with Platinum or Legends Arceus, and I had great times with those games, too. Although Legend Arceus did get a bit infuriating towards the end, trying to fill out that Pokedex, but I digress. Very, very fun game, but yeah, there's a lot of it in the future, and I would just say buckle up, sit tight, and enjoy the ride, because I know I did, but yeah, it's going to be a long one. And then, of course, there's Abzu. Now, Abzu, for anyone who knows anything about this game, it's a short game. It's extremely short. In fact, I almost had to do a lot just to stretch it out to the 6 episodes that I did. If you've seen this month's schedule post, the June schedule, you see that Abzu is every Friday this month. It's like, oh, wow, you actually managed to make... No, the finale is the first Friday in July, so it's not going to be going on that much longer, I promise. I didn't want it to be too quick. I wanted to at least make it last into summer, because I feel like this is a great game to sort of kick off this time of year with, just because, I don't know, the water, the scuba diving vibes, all of that stuff, just the color blue in general. I don't know, all those things together to me just scream, hey, it's summertime, and I wanted to play a game that really matched that vibe as we head into this time of year. And then, of course, as we look to June, we have the Fallout 4 Institute playthrough ending on the 14th. I told you guys that was going to be pretty short for a Fallout playthrough, and I wasn't lying. I had the entire thing edited before I'd even brought it up, so I knew it was going to be relatively quick. Then we're jumping into Mario Party 5, which I actually still have yet to record, but I'm hoping to do that this coming week, and I'm just going to get the whole thing done in a matter of a couple of days. It'll be really, really quick, and then I can start focusing on some other things, because right now I have a few top priorities. Now I can talk about the current stuff I'm working on. So at this very moment, my number one priority out of all of my series is currently Animal Crossing New Horizons. That's right. It's still not done, but I am on the downhill. I'm in the final stretch. I just want to get this thing finished. I want to move on. I want to never do another Animal Crossing Let's Play this big, this lengthy again, because as I've said many times before, for as much as we've seen in the game in the Let's Play, you guys are literally seeing less than half of all that I am putting into actually playing the game, just to make sure that everything records as seamlessly as I can make it. I have never had to do so much off-camera work for a video game, or for a Let's Play in my life as I have with this one. Even Destiny, which actually has a lot more to it than you would believe. I was able to do a pretty good job of keeping most of that on camera, but there was still stuff I had to go out of my way to do, just because, it's busy work and all that. New Horizons, I seriously play, I would say, 2.5 hours for every 30-minute, 45-minute episode that I record. That's just how much I have to do just to keep that game flowing and to keep things moving and to constantly keep the illusion of progress going. It's a very busy, time-consuming game, and I want to get to the end here, but I've probably got about 10 episodes left to record. I should have it done before the month is over. I'm trying to get at least 1 episode a day recorded, and once we finally make it around to the same date, but a year to the date of the first episode of the Let's Play, then we are all good. We are all done. Just a few last things to finish up, like going over some holidays that we haven't touched upon yet, some events, things like that, as well as filling out a lot of the completionist stuff, like the Critterpedia Museum, all that. Pretty much the only thing I have resigned myself to not finishing is the art exhibit, because just the way that works, it's so hard to get that done. I mean, it's totally up to luck, but trying to get that done in the span of a year, unless you are playing absolutely every single day and always refreshing Red's inventory as much as you can, it is extremely hard to get that done in the span of a year. It doesn't work that way. All of the other things that you can collect do, but the art one, it's too much. It's too much, so I've resigned myself to just not fully finishing that. I mean, as of right now, at this second, and which, I'm several episodes ahead of where you guys are at, I still have 9 paintings and 2 statues I'm missing. So yeah, it's not going to happen before the Let's Play is over, but everything else should. So just, stay tuned. That's what I'm working on right now. I'm hoping to get that done ASAP. But alongside that, I have 2 other Let's Plays that I'm working on right now that I actually can't talk about. I can give hints, but I can't really talk about them explicitly because they are currently a secret. One of which I actually started back in March and sort of paused so that I could focus on Pokemon for a while, but I'm getting back to it now. That one is a sequel to a game that I have already done a Let's Play for here on the channel, so hopefully that narrows it down a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, and it's not one that I've already talked about, so it's not Super Mario Galaxy 2 or Middle-earth Shadow of War. It's something else, but it's something that I have been wanting to do for a little bit now and wanting to continue a series that I promised I was going to continue back in the day, so just, stay tuned for that. And then the other one that I'm working on is actually a newer game that I have never played before and am enjoying immensely, and is something that if I were still doing Variety, I probably would have showcased it here on a Friday at some previous point in years past, but now I'm not doing Variety, so this has just turned into a full Let's Play. And again, all you can do is guess. I'll just say it's a relatively recent game. Now, whichever Let's Play I get done first, that's going to be the one that replaces Abzu, and whichever one gets done second, that's going to be the one that replaces Mario Party 5. That's it. That's really all I can say about that. Now, as far as replacing Abzu, you're probably going, okay, well, what about Galaxy 2? That's going to be after the next Let's Play. I wanted to give a little bit of a break between Mario games, but we'll do Abzu, we'll do the next Let's Play, and then I will worry about Super Mario Galaxy 2, and we can move on from there. But that pretty much covers all of our bases, of course, outside of Destiny. There is a few more things I did want to touch upon, though. The first of those things being Doom, actually. I said, I think it was in last month's update, that I have considered going back to the modern Doom franchise after my Doom 2016 Let's Play I did back in the day. And continuing, although I don't really love Doom Eternal that much, so I wanted to wait and see how good Doom the Dark Ages was before I committed to that promise. And if even if I don't like Doom Eternal all that much, if Doom the Dark Ages is a banger, if it's an awesome game, I can absolutely make a Let's Play of Eternal happen just to get to Dark Ages, because I really want to continue this series if it's, still putting out the quality content that I was expecting from it back when 2016 came out. To put it as succinctly as I can, I think Doom the Dark Ages is an unequivocal disappointment. It is worse than even Doom Eternal. That is a game that I think is still very well made. I just disagree with its gameplay style and a lot of the design decisions around it, but that doesn't mean I don't think it is not well made. Doom the Dark Ages, I think, is just outright bad in a lot of areas. In fact, most areas. It kind of kills a lot of what I really enjoyed about Doom 2016 and makes a lot of the best parts of Eternal worse. And I just don't think it's a good game. I know some people are out there praising it, or people are justifying it and whatnot. I'm really not a fan of the Dark Ages, and that pretty much kills any motivation I had to continue the series. However, I am thinking that maybe instead I need to do something that I never really thought I was going to do, and that is instead go on back to classic Doom, games that, I know this is going to sound crazy, I've never played before. I've seen in action, I've watched other people play them, but I have never played Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 64, Doom 3, or anything in between. None of the modded games, I haven't played Brutal Doom, any of that stuff. Doom 2016 was my first experience with Doom, and I just have never had an opportunity or a chance to go back to classic Doom, so I would like to make up for that on the channel at some point. So instead of looking ahead to a Doom Eternal and Doom the Dark Ages Let's Play, instead anticipate me going back to classic Doom at some point one of these days, and also expect that it's probably not going to be very good Doom gameplay because it's going to be my first time through it. So stay tuned for that, but that is the final call I am making on that one. Another thing I want to briefly touch upon is Fallout 4, and I know this actually has nothing to do with the Institute playthrough. This is about a future playthrough, so I said that I am still trying to go through all of the factions in Fallout 4, and I've been mulling it over a lot lately just because of the nature of my original Let's Play, as well as, all these supplemental Let's Plays that I have been trying to do. And there's something about my original Fallout 4 Let's Play that, I want to keep it there. I want to preserve it, but I think back to how I approached Skyrim, because the Skyrim Let's Play that is on my channel was actually like my 4th Let's Play of that game on the channel, if you can believe it. I mean, okay, maybe that's not necessarily true. It was like my 2nd or 3rd, but 1 or 2 of the other ones were actually stream VODs, but they were very extensive. They're all still sitting on my channel, but I think they're all private. Hundreds and hundreds of videos of Skyrim that you just can't see anymore because none of them were actually fully completed. So I just wanted to kind of put those in the background and then put my actual final Let's Play out at the forefront and call it good. I'm not saying that I want to do the exact same thing with Fallout 4 necessarily, because I still want to keep that Let's Play up. It still was my first time experience with Fallout 4, although throughout the course of that Let's Play, that got less and less true as I became more acquainted with the game off-screen over time. But for the most part, it is still a pretty fresh, new, green experience with not just Fallout 4, but Fallout as a franchise for me. And I do want to preserve it in that way, but I'm thinking I want to, and this is not going to happen anytime soon, but at some point in the distant future, probably in a couple of years from now. In fact, I think I'm looking at probably doing this once Destiny is done, because I'd like one beast of a Let's Play to get out of the way before I move on to another one. But somewhere down the line, I'm thinking that Fallout 4 is going to need a total, complete redo, in the same way that I did with Skyrim, where it is a full completionist run, where I'm actually knowledgeable about everything that I'm doing, where I can be a lot more pragmatic and actually have a plan going into everything as I make my way through the Let's Play. Of course, I still want to do this with a faction that I haven't yet covered, so it would be something like the Minutemen, for instance, or possibly the Railroad again, something along those lines. It wouldn't be Brotherhood of Steel or the Institute, because I specifically did those playthroughs to show why I think those are 2 of the lesser interesting factions for that exact reason. So that might be the way that future Minutemen playthrough ends up manifesting, is just an entire new run-through of Fallout 4. And I'm sure some people are going to groan at that, because Fallout 4 does have a reputation to diehard Fallout fans. It is often considered the worst Fallout game, and I can totally understand why, looking at the rest of the series. For people who want a certain thing out of their Fallout games, Fallout 4 is the most Skyrim-ified game in the entire series, and for a lot of people that is just not appealing. In fact, there's a reason why Skyrim has the reputation that it does. It is the normie Elder Scrolls. It is the least RPG of the Elder Scrolls, and Fallout 4 takes that same mantle in its own series, and so there's a lot of people that aren't really down with that vibe. But just to be as honest and transparent as I can be, Fallout 4 is my favorite game in the series. However, there is one game in the series that could possibly usurp that, because I actually haven't played it yet. And so I'm going to make the promise now that while, yes, I do want to do a full redo of my Fallout 4 Let's Play somewhere down the road, before I do that, I promise I will do a full Let's Play of Fallout New Vegas, okay? Hopefully that appeases some people, and they'll look forward to that, because I have never played through New Vegas. I have seen things from it. I know some of the memes around New Vegas and whatnot. I know a little bit about the factions, a little bit about the world, but I am mostly blind going into that game. I think I played the first hour on the PlayStation 3 back in the day, and that is the extent of my knowledge of Fallout New Vegas. So that will be a totally blind first-time run-through of New Vegas with just a little bit of prerequisite knowledge going into that one, and you can all look forward to that before I dive back into the Commonwealth. Okay, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over besides Destiny, so let's dive into that. If you really hate Destiny and are totally averted to it and don't want to hear anything else about it, you can click off now, but I advise you stick around, because I have some thoughts to say that actually might make you feel a little bit justified in your hatred of Destiny here as I go over my current feelings on the series and how it is going to affect the Let's Play as we go forward. So for those who are not aware, Destiny is about to get its next expansion, which is called The Edge of Fate. Now, Bungie is changing up Destiny's release cadence in that they are now doing 2 expansions a year, one every 6 months, but they are making smaller expansions than they have in the past. And The Edge of Fate is a very important expansion because, for all intents and purposes, this is the beginning of Destiny 3. I know they haven't said that officially. I know there is nothing about that out there if you were to actually Google it. A lot of people, in fact, say, no, Edge of Fate is not Destiny 3. But honestly, Destiny 2 also isn't Destiny 2. The only reason Destiny 2 exists is so that Activision could make more money off of the hype around a sequel to a very popular video game. For all intents and purposes, Destiny 2 is just a slightly upgraded continuation of Destiny 1, and I will stand by that until the very day I die. I don't care what anybody says. The whole thing is just Destiny. Edge of Fate is just the beginning of the next saga of Destiny, the second saga of Destiny. So by that logic, this is actually Destiny 2, but whatever. Numbers, semantics, not going to get into all that. All you need to know is that the final shape was the ending of Destiny up to that point. What you got in 2024 concluded what had began in 2014, and now what's coming out in 2025 is supposed to, in Bungie's own words, conclude in 2035. That's right, another 10-year plan. Now, putting aside all of my reservations and all of my cynicisms, let's just talk about the fact that they're hoping to get another 10-year game out there. And for anybody who is expecting me to continue the preservation of Destiny as a game in the form of my Let's Play, there's a few reasons I don't want to do that. Now, for me personally, Destiny has been something that I have consistently been a fan of since it came out. I have put more hours into this game than I have any other game, period. Not even counting the playtime I've put into the Let's Play, which I know is hundreds and hundreds of hours. I'm just talking about my main personal account, the one I almost never show on screen on the channel. I have over 6,000 hours across my 10 years, basically 11 years with Destiny. And I know that sounds crazy to people, but outside of maybe a few hundred here and there, I haven't regretted a single second of it. I've had a great time with Destiny over all of these years, but that's a lot of playtime, okay? 6,000 hours. Let's take that exact number at face value. That is close to, on average, 550 hours per year. It's a lot of playtime. I mean, 500 hours for any video game is considered a massive success. I look to some of the other games I've played the most in my life, like a lot of my most favorite Pokemon releases or Animal Crossing New Horizons, and a lot of those didn't even eclipse 300 or 400 hours. And I'm averaging that per year with Destiny. Now, there were definitely ups and downs. There was definitely a roller coaster in terms of my feelings on the game. In fact, going through the data, because there are these websites out there that actually track your data and your playtime in Destiny to let you know how much time you've actually spent at any given time and when was your most active time and your least active time. The two biggest low points I can think of were during the post-launch of Destiny 2 Vanilla, when it first came out with its expansions Curse of Osiris and Warmind. Now, that got made up for by quite a bit in the weeks leading up to the launch of Forsaken, because Bungie was doing some preliminary changes that were allowing people to actually get back and get ready to the game, and all the changes it was making going into that expansion. So I actually put a ton of time into that game in like those, I would say, about 3 or 4 weeks leading up so that I could go back and play all the content that I missed. So that year, I still managed to get in about 350 hours, just a little less than that. And the other one I can think of was the post-launch to Shadowkeep, where I basically went 6 whole months without even touching the game for 2 seconds. I just completely avoided it during Season of the Dawn and Season of the Worthy. I only played it in the first and final seasons of that year. And that one, I got a little over 400 hours. So still a lot of time, but by far the lowest playtime I've ever had in Destiny. Oh, wait, hold on. There is actually one more 12-month span where I've played even less than those two. And that's actually this past year, where I have played just a little over 100. And about 70% of that was all in the month immediately following and during the launch of the final shape. Because after all the excitement for the expansion wore off, Bungie tided us over with these things that they called episodes, which are supposed to not be seasons, but they really are. Seasons were 3 months of content delivered 4 times a year. Episodes are 4 months of content delivered 3 times a year. It's essentially the same thing. They were just supposed to be these epilogue chapters that were meant to wrap up some things that the final shape didn't necessarily cover, but that's all they were. And this has been, I would say, the least fun that I've had with this game in quite some time. And it's funny because I know a lot of people intentionally jumped ship with Destiny once the final shape came out, because for so many people, with how many ups and downs Destiny has had, they were just kind of riding it out for the sunk cost fallacy. They just wanted to see how this all ended, and once it was over, they could go, all right, washing my hands of it. I can move on. I am done with Destiny forever. And who can blame them, really? I certainly can't. But I was not one of those people. At least that wasn't my intention. I didn't want to leave. I was still excited to see what else they could do with Destiny. But I was a little worried because Bungie has this other game coming out called Marathon, and it felt like they were going to put a lot more focus on that, and this was just the slow way to eventually wind down Destiny before they ultimately killed it. But I was still going to hang around because I still enjoy playing the game. I still think it's fun. Except I didn't, because I just lost interest. I just stopped having fun with it. It never goes out with a bang, right? It always goes out with a whimper when you're not as excited for things. And that's not to say that the game isn't still fun to play, but it's just not interesting anymore for me, personally. And with the Edge of Fate expansion coming out, things are a bit strange because Bungie is taking a bit of a different approach this time. In so many years past, with their expansion releases, they have tried to have these big marquee releases that have brought players back in, that have made people excited to play Destiny again, that always have these big content drops or like brand new subclasses or something that is always going to be a big ticket item that excites players and makes them want to come back to Destiny after having fallen off in the months or years previous. That's always been their approach. Well, I think Bungie and everyone else in the world is fully aware of how many bridges have been burned with this franchise at this point, that they just can't take that approach anymore. So with the Edge of Fate, they're doing something that Hello Games did back in the day with No Man's Sky. They're just putting their head down. They are slowly working on improving all of the aspects of Destiny that people have complaints about, and they're just shutting up and letting the content do the work for them. At least that's what it seems like they are trying to do. But it is not going to be a quick and easy process. It's not going to be like The Witch Queen or Forsaken, where everything gets turned around on a dime before it eventually peters out and becomes uninteresting again. No, it's going to be a very slow, gradual build-up. And hopefully it's going to interest players enough that they're going to start to slowly trickle back in, glom onto the content again, or possibly be all new to Destiny and like whatever's going on now much more than they would have any of the stuff previous. And you know what? To Bungie, I say to you, best of luck to you. Hats off to you. I hope that you can turn it around. And you know what? I will be there. I'll be checking in every now and then. I'm not going to have a problem with it. Even if I'm only playing 50, 100 hours of game a year, the entry price that you guys ask for this game, I know for a lot of people it sounds extremely expensive, but for the way that I play Destiny, I can always justify the asking price because I know I'm going to put in enough gameplay. Even in my least interested phases, I am still going to put in enough time that it's going to actually be worth the entry fee. Like, this expansion's $40. Okay, I'm sure I'm going to play enough of this expansion that I will get my $40 out of it. If I can get more than 20 hours in, that's worth it to me. That's my value proposition. I mean, how many $60, $70, $80 games out there exist that only give you 20 hours of good content? You know what I mean? Same value proposition here. I'll be there. I'll be along for the ride. I'll be watching, hoping that something can happen to this game where it truly becomes something special again. But you know what? I just don't have any hope. In the slightest. Not at all. I have no faith that Destiny is going to turn it around. I have no faith that Bungie is going to turn it around, and not for a lack of trying. I don't have faith because Bungie has just recently established themselves as probably the most poorly run company in the entire video game industry. They have managed to make an executive class that is somehow more despised than anyone at EA or Ubisoft, and has probably taken the crown from Bobby Kotick, although solely because he is now out of the industry. That's how bad Bungie has been as of late. And again, it's not the developers' fault. It's not the people who are on the ground level, who are in the trenches, who are actually working on this game. It's never been their fault. It has always been the leadership. The developers in Bungie, I maintain this fact, I stand by this, whether you're talking about the gameplay designers, whether you're talking about the art team, the music, this is what makes Destiny so special. It is so obvious that whoever is working on Destiny at any given time during its life cycle, they are the best or among the best at what they do out of anybody in the industry. That talent is so obvious when you're playing Destiny that you just can't not see it. It's more so things like the content delivery model, the monetization, the many different ever-changing and shifting priorities of Bungie with Destiny, and all of those are things that you chalk up to the leadership. A person who is on the art team draws and models and makes what he is told to draw, make, or model, he or she. That is what their job is. It is not their decision to go, well, you know, we feel that with the way that the game is now, that we need to start placing more of an emphasis on selling skins rather than making more raids for you guys to play. Like, that's not a developer's decision. That is leadership's decision. And every single one of those issues can be chalked up to them going all the way back to the beginning of the game. Now, of course, there's a lot of revisionist history there on whether it was Bungie's fault, whether it was Activision's fault back in the day, whether it was, whoever Bungie was working with, Sony. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. All we know is that it is always executives. Stuff that the developers make is always good, 100% of the time. And I have all the faith in them, but the problem is I don't have faith in the people that sign their paychecks and make sure they stay employed. You know what I mean? That's my problem with Destiny, especially because of not just the fallout of Destiny itself and all of the developers that were working on the game getting laid off back when the final shape came out, but also this whole marathon situation where we are looking at what might be one of the biggest launch disasters since Concord, but from a way more reputable and storied franchise and studio than Concord ever was. I'm not saying it's going to be that big of a failure, but it is not looking good, folks. It is not looking good for that game at all. And seeing where this is all going and seeing that, there's a very high possibility that in 2-3 years, Bungie just doesn't exist anymore as an entity. They're just another bygone developer lost to the same realm as something like Maxis or Visceral or Bullfrog Games or Pandemic or whoever else you want to name that's been killed that once seemed like a developer that was on top of the world because of how good they were at what they did. So with Destiny now heading into yet another saga, I just have no faith. I have no faith that this is going to make it as far as it was going to. I know a lot of people didn't have faith with the original Destiny, but I always did because there was a rock there. There was a solid foundation. There were a lot of players that were there that were going to always keep Destiny going no matter what. This game has a very dedicated player base and a much larger player base than people ever wanted to admit. Except now, I'm not so sure about that. It definitely going up to the final shape, it always felt like this game was going to make it to the finish line. But now I'm not so sure. Now I'm not so sure that they can, starting a whole new story and moving on from there. And I don't want to commit to Let's Playing that game if that's where it's going to go. I also want to pay very close attention to how their content release works, because if they're still doing what they did with the last 10 years of Destiny, where so much content gets pulled out of the game over time, I'm even more not going to commit to ever Let's Playing it. If they can keep a lot of that stuff in there so it's like there for players to go back to and play over time, then I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll get back and do a retrospective Let's Play once again, but of the second saga of Destiny. But right now, I'm cutting it off. I'm saying right now, once we get through Final Shape, that is the end. I am not going to concern myself with the episodes. I'm not going to concern myself with Edge of Fate or anything beyond that. The Final Shape will be the end of this Let's Play, much like, for me and for so many other players, it was the end of this game. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have to say on that. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this update very much, and I'll see you all in the next one.